What's up guys, welcome back to my Tech Deals series. Last week I did a video on the best GPUs to buy this holiday season. So this week I'm gonna do a video on the best CPUs to pair potentially with one of those GPUs. But I'm not just gonna focus on gaming PCs. If you check out the description down below, you can go straight to all the links to all the recommended CPUs, which I've separated because a lot of you might be looking to build a gaming PC, but a lot of people are looking to build a system for production, you know, to actually get some work done. But I've separated everything into pricing tiers once again. So without further ado, let's get started.
Excellent!
Today's video is brought to you by Thermaltake's The Tower 600 series cases, continuing their popular lineup of vertical body design solutions with more room than ever for high-end PC builds. With support for full-size ATX motherboards with hidden connectors, side radiator mounts with room for 360 and 420mm AIOs, a dual-mode GPU mounting system, and vented side panels that easily pop off for access to cable management or the 13 fan mounts, the Tower 600 is both easy to build in and distinct in its design. There's an optional display stand and LCD panel too. For more on the Tower 600 series cases from Thermaltake, click the sponsor link in the video description. Before I go over the CPUs, a few notes. What about the rest of the parts of the computer, Paul? If you want the rest of a computer, check out the recent video I did on the best $1,250 gaming PC possible. Other than the CPU and the GPU, the rest of those parts should work for just about any of the systems we're building today, with the possible exception of the budget level CPUs where you'll probably want to go with the less expensive motherboard. Secondly, also down in the description, you will find this list with everything sorted by price. We have gaming and production CPUs. For the $100 category, I combined them both together. For $200 and up, I separated gaming recommendations from production recommendations because for a production CPU, you typically want more cores, more threads, whereas with the gaming CPU, you want faster single core performance, as well as, if possible, lots of cache, which is why AMD's recent 3D V-Cache CPUs have been performing so well with gaming. And speaking of AMD and Intel, one of the big decisions you need to make when you're deciding what CPU to get is what platform you want to go for, because with graphics cards, they're pretty widely compatible with lots of different gaming PCs, but with the CPU, you need to make sure it's compatible with your motherboard. So you need to make an upfront decision to go with Intel or AMD, and both vendors have more than one platform that's on the market right now. So to simplify things, Intel's most recent platform, which uses the LGA 1851 socket, has not been very positively received. And I don't think any of the CPUs that have launched for that platform so far are priced very well or offer very compelling performance. So I'm leaving Intel LGA 1851 out of this video for now, and we can come back to it in January or February after more CPUs have launched and maybe pricing has settled down a little bit. So on the Intel side, I'm just looking at LGA 1700 CPUs where you have 12th gen, 13th gen, and 14th gen available. And then for AMD, you have two platforms, the older AM4 platform, which is still very viable. It's more of a budget option though, and it's not going to give you a very good upgrade path. So if you build on AM4 right now, you're probably not going to have a whole lot to upgrade to. The other option from AMD is their AM5 platform, where you have 7000 series processors and the more recently launched 9000 series processors. And that platform will have an upgrade path, probably at least another generation of CPUs launching on it. So if you're the kind of PC builder who might come back to your system soon, like in 6 months or a year to do upgrades or something like that, you might want to invest in AM5 so you have more options in the future. If you're sticking to a budget though, then Intel LGA 1700 and AMD AM4, since they're slightly older, have a lot of really good deals right now. Oh, and one last thing to mention while you're shopping for a CPU is whether or not it comes with a stock heatsink fan. That can be a great value add because it's probably a $30 or so expense that you don't need to add to the overall cost of your build, but not all CPUs come with a heatsink fan. Generally speaking, AMD CPUs that end with an X are more geared towards overclockers, so they say you probably will want an aftermarket cooler, so they don't ship with one in the box. And the same goes for Intel CPUs that end with a K. K for Intel means it's unlocked for overclocking, also means that it probably doesn't include a CPU cooler in the box, because if you're overclocking, you probably want an aftermarket CPU cooler. With all that said, let's dive into our list. We're starting off with CPUs that are $100 or less. So in this budget range, I've only selected AMD AM4 CPUs, and the starter is the Ryzen 5 5500, which is only $84. It is a 6-core, 12-thread CPU. However, it's a different configuration than the 5600X. So if you have a few more dollars, then the 5600X is definitely where I would point you. It's just over $100, $105 on sale right now. It's still 6 cores and 12 threads, but the 5600X has twice the cache of the 5500, and that's greatly going to improve gaming performance as well as other tasks. And I know I'm already going over the $100 limit at 105 bucks here, but I just have to point out that if you want to jump up to 8 cores and 16 threads, the 5700X is also a screaming deal right now for $130. Technically, this belongs in the $200 and under category, so we'll put it there too. Over on the Intel side, there are some decent deals as well. We have a 14th gen process here, although it is the 14100F, which is only a 4-core 8-thread processor, but it's also only $90 or so. And I also want to point out, when we're looking at Intel CPUs, if they end in F, it means there's no iGPU, no integrated graphics. That means you will need a discrete graphics card in order to get this processor up and running. There are often really good deals on the SKUs that end in F, but you just need to bear in mind you can't use it without a graphics card, and you're also not going to get Intel QuickSync because of the lack of that iGPU. I think there's better bargains on the Intel side with the 12th and 13th gen CPUs. Case in point, here's the 13100F. This is just the previous gen version of the 14100F, and it's about 11 bucks cheaper at $79. So I gave that one a star if you're on the Intel side, and this one has a star too. It's the 12400F. Since it's the 400 and not the 100, you get more cores, 6 performance cores with this one and 12 threads. And again, just slightly over our $100 limit at $111.34. Let's step up to the $200 price tier, and here I am differentiating between CPUs I'm recommending for a gaming system and CPUs I'm recommending for a production system. If you are looking for a combination system that can do both, then lean towards the gaming system recommendations. And case in point, right at $200, okay, it's just over $200, so again, I'm going over the limit, but this is one of the top CPUs for a gaming PC, period. Outside of some much more expensive Intel 14th gen processors, as well as AMD's AM5 stuff, the 5700X3D at $211, I put 2 stars on my chart, because this is the one that if you're really on a budget and you want to get a gaming system up and running, this is where I would point you for sure. That said, if you are interested in that upgrade path, then the AM5 option I'd point you towards right here is the Ryzen 5 7600. This one has a little coupon you can add that brings it down to about $180. Over on Newegg, it's basically the same price. There is a $25 off promo code that brings it down to the same amount. And the nice thing about the 7600, since it's not an X SKU, is it comes with a heatsink fan in the box, which will totally get you by to get you up and running. So that's why it's my budget option that I put a star next to. I didn't put a star next to the 7600X because it's really just a clock speed boost and you don't get the heatsink fan in the box. But if you know you're going with an aftermarket heatsink fan and you want a little bit more performance, this is only $14 more. Over on the Intel LGA 1700 side, we also have some good deals. The 13600K is unlocked for overclocking and it is down to $210. This one would be a nice crossover for a production system as well, because it has 6 P cores and 8 E cores for 20 threads total. But if you can do without that iGPU, the 13600KF is $35 cheaper. So yeah, get this one. That's again why I put the star on that one. And then lastly, we have the i5 14600KF, also a bit of a standout in this range. $215 unlocked for overclocking, although again, bear in mind, no iGPU. Moving over to the best production CPUs under $200. So here we're more interested in more cores, more threads. And again, the 5700X at $130 is just a screaming deal right here. This is an excellent CPU and it's only 130 bucks. So even though the 5800X is also on a pretty good sale right now for $162, I still think I'd veer towards the 5700X because it's $32 less. If you're looking for a nice budget production chip on the Intel side, the i7 12700KF, actually 12th gen, is where I'm going to point you towards for both of these. This is a bit cheaper than the 13600KF. It has 8 P cores and 4 E cores. So you still end up with 20 threads overall, but you have more P cores with this version, and it's 190 instead of a little over 200. And I threw the 12700K in there as well because it's also just over $200, and this is the option if you need an iGPU, if you want to build a production workstation and you don't want to spend the extra money on a graphics card, you need integrated graphics, and at about the $200 price point, I'd say this would be your best bet. Next, we have the best gaming CPUs under $300, and on the AMD side, it's the same. It's still the 5700X3D. I would not point you towards any other CPU than this one if you're building a gaming PC on a budget. Okay, actually I take that back since we're talking about $300 and less, the 7600X3D. If you do want to jump up to an AM5 platform and you have access to a micro center, you need to be able to physically go to a micro center to buy one, you can get the 7600X3D, which is currently going for $300. This is top tier gaming performance. It's just a step or two behind the 7800X3D, so it's definitely like in the top 5 in terms of gaming CPUs. Because of the performance that AMD has achieved with the 7600X3D, 7800X3D, 9800X3D, and 5700X3D. At this price and above for gaming systems, I would point everyone towards AMD because that's where you're going to get the best performance out of whatever graphics card you choose to pair with the processor. In the interest of fairness though, if someone was to say, Paul, I hate AMD because they insulted me in the past or something like that, I have to go Intel, I would point you towards the 14700K. I'd say that's the best all-around mid to upper tier gaming CPU from Intel. It's a good processor. It's pretty decently balanced. It just falls behind the X3D CPUs from AMD. Switching over to the best production CPUs under $300 where there's a lot more competition and choice, we have the 5900XT from AMD. This is one of the refresh 5000 series CPUs, so even though it's not a 5950X, it still has 16 cores and 32 threads. And don't forget the promo code down here that's going to bring the price down to about $280. I gave the 5900XT a star because of that really nice price, but there's also the 5950X in this category, which also has come down to a pretty compelling price, $317. Between the two of these, I'd go with the 5900XT, but that's still a pretty good deal. If you want AM5 for a production system, you're gonna have to pay a bit more per core. 7700X is an 8-core, 16-thread CPU. It's $260. It's, I would say, kind of the starting out point for a production-focused system on this platform, where you want more cores and more threads, and it is a decent step up in price. It's about $70 more, but the 7900X goes from 8 cores to 12 cores, and this is also a Ryzen 7000 series processor, and this is also one where like the prices come down a lot. That's a good price for this CPU. Here's another CPU that starred on the list, the i9-12900K. Look how far it's come. Now that it's $277, I can totally recommend this 16-core, 24-thread processor, and it's also nice that since it's 12th gen, these CPUs weren't affected by some of the instability problems that 13th gen and 14th gen had. By the way, if you're concerned about those, just make sure you update your motherboard's BIOS to the latest version before you do anything with your system, even if you're running a 13th gen or 14th gen processor. We're told that all those problems have been resolved. I also put the 12900KF on this list. I'm not sure why you would want to pay a few dollars more to not have an iGPU, but it's there as well. Go with the 12900K, I'd say that's a better bet. And that brings us to our next tier, the best gaming CPUs under $400. And here, I'll be honest, it should be the 7800X3D. This was the best CPU for gaming until the 9800X3D recently launched. Unfortunately, the price of the 7800X3D got as high as about $480. It's dropped back down a little bit to around $460. I'm hoping it will continue to drop once 9800X3D becomes more available because those are still selling out. But if you're about to spend $400 on a CPU and gaming is your focus, save an extra $50 or so and go with the 7800X3D, or maybe hopefully wait a month or two and maybe the prices will come back down and it actually will be around $400 again. It's the same price over on Newegg, and I guess the only silver lining here is that it's actually in stock and you can buy them. Switching to best production CPUs under $400, we have a new one, the Ryzen 9 9900X. Because the Ryzen 9000 series, the non-X3D ones, had pretty mediocre reviews when they came out, the prices have actually come down on them somewhat. And the 9900X, which originally listed for $500, is now down to $382.55. That's a 12-core, 24-thread processor, the latest generation from AMD. That's a pretty nice one, pretty good deal. Also selling for less than $400, on the Intel side, we have the 13th gen flagship, the 13900KF, again, F means no iGPU, selling for $377. Or for about $20 more, we have the 13900K non-F, selling for $400, a pretty nice discount over the original MSRP, as well as what this CPU is selling for more recently. Again, just make sure with Intel 13th and 14th gen processors, especially these higher end ones that can actually use up a lot of power, make sure to update your BIOS before you do anything serious with your system. Okay, just 2 tiers left, and the gaming CPU situation for $500 and under is again pretty straightforward. If you want the best possible CPU for gaming, the 9800X3D is the way to go. It should be $480. However, it is sold out. Yeah, at both Amazon and Newegg, as well as many other retailers. So if you have some patience and you can hang out and wait for restocks, that's definitely a good one to go for. As an alternative, we have the 7800X3D, which is available and in stock. It's $460. This is not the greatest price for the CPU. I'd love to see that price come down, and we might actually see that. We just need more of these 9800X3Ds to come into the market to provide a bit more competition. Our last category is for the best production / all-around CPUs, because once you're getting into the high-end production CPUs, many of them have pretty capable gaming chops as well. well. And on the AMD side, we have the 7950X3D and 7900X3D, which totally fit that category. The 7950X3D is 16-core 32-thread with 3D V-cache. However, not a good price on this one. It's close to $600. There is also the 7900X3D, the 12-core 3D V-cache enabled variant. This is also not a good price. It's close to $600. And keep in mind that the 7900X without the 3D is $330. That's a pretty hefty premium for 3D V-cache. So again, these are really nice all-rounders, but I wouldn't really point you towards them right now. For one, they're overpriced, and for two, the 9950X3D and 9900X3D are probably going to be launching in January, February, so it might be worth your while to hold out for those if you're looking for that true all-rounder. Getting back to production focus though, we have the 7950X, which is also a pretty reasonable price now at $467. That's going to give you the maximum cores and threads as well as clock speeds on the Ryzen 7000 series, and it's the same price over on Newegg. You just got to add a promo code. There is also the 9950X, also just recently launched, but this one is also difficult to find right now. Do not pay $700 for this CPU. It should be selling for $600, but it's sold out most places. That's why Amazon's currently selling it for a $100 markup. And lastly, a bit of a silver lining for Intel with the 14th gen situation over the summer is the 14900K prices have come down quite a bit. These do still have a little bit of a cloud hanging over them because of those instability problems, but again, as long as you update your motherboard's BIOS to the latest version, as soon as you get your system up and running before you do anything serious with it, these are still totally viable processors with lots of cores, 24 cores total and 32 threads, and $438 is down pretty significantly from the $550 to $600 that these used to sell for. And again, the F SKU, if you lose the iGPU, costs $1 more. So between the two of those, go with the 14900K. And that is going to do it for my rundown of the best CPUs to buy, whether you're building a gaming PC or a production system in November 2024. There are so many excellent options right now. And the nice thing about the CPUs right now is that there aren't a bunch of pending launches that we're expecting at the beginning of 2025. The only thing that you might want to hold out for is if you're looking for that high-end combination system where you're looking for gaming and production in one. For those people, you might want to hold out until January when AMD is expected to announce the 9950X3D and 9900X3D, because those will likely take the top spots for that type of build. That's assuming, of course, that AMD can keep those CPUs in stock. But again, all the links to the CPUs I'm recommending are down in the video description below. Look for the little stars on the ones that I specifically recommend. And if you enjoyed this video, hit the thumbs up button on your way out. And don't forget to check out my store at paulshardware.net, where you can buy shirts, mugs, pint glasses. We have some new beanies that have come in, as well as my new mouse mats that are super awesome. Thank you guys so much for watching this video, and we'll see you all in the next one.